Good afternoon. It's a beautiful afternoon, right? A beautiful Tuesday. I hope you get a chance to take advantage of this great weather, but not right now. For the next hour, you should be glued to this station, WWDB 860 AM, because we have three fantastic guests for you sitting here with me. Andrew Frishkoff from the LISC, which is LISC, and I'm going to tell you what that means and everything, but it's all really about helping local community initiatives at the grassroots. And listen, they're giving away money, so stay tuned on how to get some money and help to improve your community. Our next guest is David Lyve, and he is the 2017 R&B winner of PHL Live Center Stage. Just a dynamic, charismatic artist. He is doing a lot of things, and we're going to be talking with him. We're going to hear some of his music. And then we're going to talk to Pat Taggart, and he's going to be talking to us about his documentary film. He's a Philadelphia indie filmmaker, and it's being released on iTunes and whatnot today. But a fascinating true story about a radio station that had three men go up and sit on a billboard to win a mobile home. And guess what? They sat up there for 9 months. And it's just an amazing, fascinating, hilarious, and telling story about, the challenges and everything else that people face and what they're willing to do. Let me start by thanking, of course, the show's sponsor, Weinerman Pain and Wellness. They're at the Land Title Building in Center City, Philadelphia, 100 South Broad Street. They do a wonderful job of helping those who have been injured, either at work or in an accident, to get back into a good health and to be as functional as possible. I've visited their place, and I know a little bit about the topic, so definitely fantastic folks there. Check them out, Weinerman Pain and Wellness. Last week, we had the pleasure of talking to Mark Kramer, Angel Venture Fair, if you remember. We're talking about him gathering folks that will put money behind you. Sometimes $5,000, sometimes $200,000, sometimes $3 million. And so, it's important to get those angel investors behind you if you're trying to start a business. And listen, I want you to start a business. We all do. We need the employment, and definitely those taxes pay for our schools and make our community better, and address many of the problems that we face. We talked to a fantastic young man, Max Swan. He is a two-time PHL Live Center Stage finalist in the jazz category, multi-talented gentleman. And then we talked to Pete Fraudenberger of the Stephen A. Cohen Military Family Clinic and the free behavioral health care for veterans that they provide. They're really associated with the University of Pennsylvania, and they do some things that it's really out of the ordinary. And so they have a very broad range of folks they can serve. So check them out, Stephen A. Cohen Military Family Clinic. And I mentioned this because you can listen to past shows right here on this station at the website, www.wwdbam.com. Or if you want to take a look at some of our guests, you can go to my YouTube channel. That's over at on YouTube. Just type in the Know with David O. And finally, you can always reach me, Twitter, Instagram, at David O. Philly. And we do a segment which is really answering what you want to know, or if you had any suggestions, ideas, or questions, or you want to follow up with some of our guests, send me an email at davidoRadioshow@gmail.com. davidoRadioshow@gmail.com. Let me start by introducing you to our first guest, Andrew Frishkoff. He is the executive director of Philadelphia LISC. And Local Initiative Support Corporation, LISC, Local Initiative Support Corporation. So the first three letters are the most important. Local, right? Philadelphia. Initiative, support, right? And so since 2011, he's been the executive director, and he provides leadership in developing and implementing LISC strategy and initiatives, and overseeing fundraising and external communications. He has a long history of being involved in housing issues and helping communities, especially communities faced with the challenges of the housing needs and poverty and other things. And so let me welcome Andrew Frishkoff to the show.
Great. Thank you very much, Councilman. Pleasure to be here.
Hey, well, thank you. Listen, I mean, right now, you are taking applications for one of your programs, and you don't have to be a 501c3 to apply. That's pretty unusual.
Yep, no, this is our Community Connections program, and it's really a demonstration, first time doing it, but it's really about providing some money, learning, and coaching for small grassroots community organizations. You don't have to be a 501c3. You can get a fiscal sponsor if you're selected. You can be a 501c3, but you don't necessarily need to be a big organization with full audited financial statements, usually those hurdles that prevent community groups from getting support. And it's really a response to residents in many neighborhoods where we work who are looking for support to be able to engage the other residents, to work on community improvement projects, whether that's safety, health, beautification, housing, and just need a little bit of support that often just goes to the larger organizations.
Yeah, I really like that. Let me start by saying LISC, if you never heard of Philadelphia LISC, let me say this. They've given out $400 million since they've been here in the 1980s. So that's a lot of money, $400 million. So check them out. Now this particular program is smaller amounts of money. It's I think you're selecting 12 organizations, community groups, to give $2,000 to, and some other help. And what I like about it is that so many of the solutions that we need in this city really need to be focused in the communities that are challenged. And this is something that folks can do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we like to say that we're a catalyst for community change. And what we do is we work with partners to strengthen neighborhoods and improve the lives of residents. And this is a perfect example where it's a partnership. LISC never does anything alone. The city's Department of Housing and Community Development, Philadelphia Foundation have provided support, as well as a number of community leaders throughout the city to help us shape what this is and really be responsive to what those community leaders say they need.
Yeah, and I'm looking, some of the groups that you're encouraging to apply, like civic associations, CDCs, which are community development corporations, including neighborhood advisory committees, community-based groups that are typically run by volunteers, friends of parks, libraries, recreation centers. These are a lot of times people who volunteer their time and they know the problem and they're looking to do something, and sometimes that $2,000 and that help in making it happen is really critical to them getting themselves more and more involved.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we will continue to provide support for larger projects, but we wanted to make sure that we had a chance for those individuals, those volunteers, those smaller groups, to have a chance to be able to work. And we have some great examples. We've helped bring partnerships between police and community residents that led to the types of projects we're hoping to support here. We've helped residents learn to re-engage with one another, to knock on each other's doors, and to take each other's temperature and say, oh, what is the most important thing we can do together in our neighborhood for ourselves?
What are some of the types of ideas you imagine people may want to apply for? For example, I had a reporter on my block just the other day. I live at like 58th and Thomas, across from Cobb Street Park in Southwest Philadelphia. Kind of a challenged neighborhood. And boy, I could name a few things. First of all, the Cobb Street Park where I'm at is pretty undeveloped. It needs a new basketball court, new tennis court. We want to make sure seniors can walk through it. It's a common site for dumping, construction waste, that type of things, cleaning up the neighborhood. Do all those things count?
They all can count. Some of them may be bigger ticket items, so
Right.
maybe this is a first step.
Right.
We've done some work, 8th and Diamond Recreation Center. They had a community safety problem, and they had a crime problem, and residents sought to address it not only by looking at what were the dangerous conditions, but also what could they do with even a little bit of money to get more kids into that recreation center.
Right.
What were some things they could do with volunteers and others to offer programming that wasn't in place previously. And this is 2 years before the mayor's rebuild initiative,
Right.
but it's exactly the type of thing that you might be able to get started now with a little bit of
Right.
money, and then a project like rebuild could maybe then take care of the more expensive.
Yeah, and for our listeners, listen, I mean, basically, while, I would love to see the city invest to make sure that people can use the park, part of the thing that happens is if we don't get a friends group together that's going to be responsible for making sure there's access to the park and that we clean it up and that if we have sports equipment, someone will make it available, then it's less likely that the city will invest in our neighborhood.
Absolutely, and Mantua Greenway is a perfect example of that.
Okay.
You had individual residents living right up next to the Amtrak tracks that weren't really particularly well taken care of, and they just on their own were doing beautification. We were able to give them a little bit of support to, among other things, create a friends group, and now they've been able to get some foundation money and support from the City Planning Commission to start planning a full recreational trail as well as broader beautification there. We would never have come to them in the first place if they hadn't gotten started on their own.
Right. And I suppose, if people, these 12 groups are going to get this $2,000 and they're going to kind of show whether or not they're successful. But if they're successful and you're working with them, they could always apply for more support.
And we will try to raise more support. We'll learn from this, see if it's working right, or if there are things we can do to make it better. And we hope to repeat this. And I'll say we hope to be announcing something that will be complimentary I hope in the next month, which is also to support individual community leaders who maybe need some help with some training or a class to help them be more effective in supporting their communities. So we hope to be rolling that out as well, and we really see these as partner initiatives.
Okay, that's great, because so many times, there are willing people, but as good as they are, they need some technical help, they need some leadership training, they need to have a broadened view of how things work, what ideas they have been successful, those type of things. And so you're bringing those resources as well.
Yeah, and always with partners. So the City's Citizen Planning Institute, the Philadelphia Association of CDCs offer some of those supports. But in some cases, there are more expensive programs that residents can't afford, or specific training. We want to be able to help them take that next step.
Okay, fantastic. So I see that the deadline to apply for this is Friday, March the 30th, 2018, and LISC will notify selected groups by April the 20th, 2018. And so March, April, basically you get your application in March 30th, and basically about 20 days later, you got an answer.
That's our hope, yep.
Oh, pretty quick turnaround time. And so are you anticipating a lot of folks applying?
We were just talking about that this morning. I'm guessing that we will actually have more than we can serve in this first round. I'm guessing we'll have as many as 40 or 50 applications. But again, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to keep this going, and so even if you're not selected this time, that we'll have the ability to work with you in the future.
Well, listen, if you're thinking about doing something, especially if you're challenged with some resources and support, if they're expecting 40 applicants, maybe 50, your odds are pretty darn good.
Yep.
Because they're going to select 12, and hopefully we'll have even more applicants, because this is a great resource, and you're being introduced to Philadelphia LISC, Local Initiative Support Corporation. Can you tell us about LISC?
Sure. So we're a national nonprofit organization. As you mentioned earlier, we've been working in Philadelphia since 1981. We are a community development intermediary, so our job is to bring resources from government, foundations, corporations, both dollars and knowledge, technical assistance, to community-based organizations and to the neighborhoods that they serve. And in some cases, our financial assistance takes the form of loans for housing projects or community facilities. We also make equity investments in affordable housing, but we also can make recoverable grants, program grants. We can provide technical assistance to groups. And much of what we do is focused on things that neighborhood residents have identified in their community plans as priorities. Affordable housing, those neighborhood commercial corridors where they shop, community safety, health, etc. And we're increasingly now trying to get more involved in supporting economic development, particularly pathways to jobs and careers for lower income residents.
Okay, well that's fantastic. Now, you came to Philadelphia back in, was it '84?
Yep.
And you went to Haverford College.
Yep.
Excellent college right here in the area. And what drew you to become the executive director of Philadelphia LISC?
So I think I had some passion around community service even when I started as a teenager. But in the 1980s, Philadelphia, as well as other cities, was really suffering from the crisis of homelessness. And so even while I was an undergraduate, that became a focus of my work. And I wanted to try to figure out how I could turn that into something beyond college. And so I was able to do some community organizing and affordable housing, was able to run some successful programs for lower income home buyers. This is in the news again as we see that there are banks that are not lending the way they should be to all residents of the city. But that was where I first got started in the late 1980s. And since then I've done housing policy. I've worked for the city, running neighborhood economic development programs. I got a business degree along the way. And then LISC's been a perfect fit to be able to bring all of that together and go back and be able to serve those neighborhoods that we care about so much.
All right, fantastic. Now, for our listeners who want to learn more about Philadelphia LISC and who may want to get an application, where can they go? Right.
So our website is www.lisc.org/Philly. Our phone number is 215-923-3801. And if you want to reach me, my email is frishkoff@lisc.org. I'd be happy to forward you information.
Boy, that's pretty accessible. You can call or email the Executive Director, Andrew Frishkoff, yourself over at LISC. Well, let me ask you, what are some of the other programs that people may be, I know you have a lot of programs, but for some of our listeners who are looking at the $2,000 level, what are some programs that you offer in addition?
So we work with partners on some home repair programs. Right now we're supporting a home repair partnership in West Philadelphia to work with Habitat for Humanity and Rebuilding Together to do about 50 home repairs a year in the Mantua, Belmont, surrounding neighborhoods of West Philadelphia. We support 8 community development corporations in their neighborhood commercial corridor work. That includes both working with businesses and some degree doing addressing blight and community safety and where possible revitalizing vacant buildings for both residential and commercial space. We're taking an increasing role in trying to work with the city and others to preserve our at-risk affordable housing. We have a lot of affordable rental housing that may be at risk of losing subsidies, and we've not been able to create enough new, even market rate rental housing in recent years to keep up with demand. And so we're finding that we need to take a more active role with policy research as well as our financing of programs so that we don't have more people on the streets unable to find a place to live.
Right, it's one of the challenges that we face. We have a lot of folks in our communities, but it just seems that all the emphasis these days is for more expensive construction and not really building low-income, affordable residences in the communities where they are needed. What is LISC? How does LISC engage itself in this whole process?
So most often we're working with individual organizations to help them with particular projects, both the planning, the pre-development, and the construction. But we also work with Philadelphia Association, CDCs, and others on the policy and the advocacy pieces. What can we do to reduce costs or increase resources? And that could be from the city, state, federal, or from private sector. And then are there innovations that we all can look to? So, for instance, the Jumpstart Germantown program that's been in the news recently. We helped Philadelphia Office Retail and Ken Weinstein to create new materials so that they could share that program across the city. And we actually have 3 seed grants out right now that were issued through a competitive process to help 3 new neighborhoods see whether they can use that Jumpstart program, which is just people like you and me learning to be developers, finding properties in Southwest Philadelphia and Deconey or wherever that they can acquire and renovate, and to some degree work with a community organization just for the seal of approval that I'm going to be a good landlord, or I'm going to sell this to a new home buyer. And that, I think, in some neighborhoods is another way to go. I think the recent RFP for McPherson Square that Councilwoman Quinona Sanchez worked on offers a new model for a for-profit developer to acquire properties, renovate them, and then make them available through a nonprofit to residents. And that may be an additional way that we can look to both reduce costs and increase the effectiveness of programs.
Right. Well, that's fantastic. Now, for people who may want to volunteer or support Philadelphia LISC, how can they do that?
So we are always appreciative of support. We are a nonprofit, just like all the other nonprofits we try to support. Most of our funding comes from foundations and corporations, some from government. But if you go to our website, you could, or if you email me, we can give you the information if you want to be an individual donor.
And what's that website again?
It's www.lisc.org/Philly.
Boy, you can't confuse that one. All right. So listen, they're doing great work. They're offering a way for for local folks in some of our in any community, but especially those very challenged communities where people want to do something and they need a little bit of help. And so if you are interested in getting a grant from them and getting to know Philadelphia LISC and working with them to better your community, check them out. And at least you could Google Philadelphia LISC, right? LISC stands for Local Initiative Support Corporation. Andrew, thanks for stopping by and sharing all this information.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, listen, please stay tuned because after this commercial break, we will be talking to and listening to David Lyve.